If you're watching this video, then you may or may not be operating from limitations that are hurting your business. That stem from years of conditioning, dating way back to however long you've run your business, all the way down to your childhood. And in the present moment, it is currently hurting the way that you can grow your business and achieve the goals that you would like. Now, the reason I know this is because I've studied limiting beliefs beyond anything with all my clients that I've worked with. And the one common pattern is that everything that you're working in right now has subconscious limiting beliefs that are holding back what you can actually achieve and what you can implement in business. And what I would love to run you through today, if you are the person who feels like they have a mental block within their business, and I'm going to run through the exact simple system as to why that is, and also what you can do with the eyesight P protocol to change that and achieve the results that you want. Biggest thing that I want to say is that if you are not the person who feels like they have a mental block within their business, you feel like everything's running very smoothly, you don't feel like you're mentally blocked in anything, then this video is not for you. But if you do have an inkling that you might have a limiting belief or a mental block, then this video will either bring awareness to that or help you solve that problem. But if you are confident that you have a mental block holding back your business from actually achieving the results that you want, and you've been blocked for months or years, then this is the video for you to be able to switch yourself from being in a state of limitation to being in a state of abundance and achieving all the goals that you want through the ISIP, which is a very simple system, and explaining simply why that is and simply explaining again what you can do to solve that. My name is Alex, and I've worked with over hundreds of people one-to-many with my mindset coaching offer, and also a decent handful of people one-to-one. I just want to give you the best solution possible to get out of this limiting state, or at least a lack of awareness on this. Now, what are limiting beliefs? Limiting beliefs are a simple conclusion embedded, I'll just misspell that, conclusion embedded in your subconscious. This has been embedded into your subconscious mind over years of experience, conditioning, what other people have said to you, what you've experienced day to day, all the memories of you in your childhood that you learned something and that became a part of you. We grow up and we are born with zero limitations, but every experience along the way puts us into a state of limitation without us knowing it. And I think that's a big part of this whole system, is that everything that we're working towards today is subconscious, it's underlying, it's stuff that you can't really see on the day to day, which what makes this video super powerful, because bringing awareness to that is the first step to actually solving the problem. And if you don't know that you have subconscious limitations, and the reason why you are not progressing in business is simply because you have subconscious limits, then this is the video that's going to really allow you to understand that. Now, why do we have subconscious limitations embedded in our subconscious that we've come to the conclusion that to certain things in our life that are stopping us from accessing the next level, which is the next conclusion that allows us to access a different outcome? For example, let's say you had the conclusion that I don't want to spend any more money than $2,000 in ads because that's the experience that gets me this ROI. You could have heard that from someone earlier on in the day, or you could have heard that from someone whilst you were growing up with your family business and your dad told you that never spend this amount. And that is something that can really hurt you. But the reason why we have all these limiting beliefs comes down to three things. The first thing, which is what I touched on earlier, roughly, which is exposure. These can be from your childhood. These can be from conversations you have today. It could be from someone that you've spoken to in the last 3 months or 3 years that has embedded something that you've just been exposed to. Or exposure could be prolonged, and it could be daily. It could be something that you see everywhere and you don't doubt it for a second. This experience and this conclusion that you've got has only been exposed to you within a memory in your past. What I'd love for you to do right now is just write down, if you want to implement anything from this video immediately, is write down. You can think for a second and pause this video if it makes sense. 2, write down a memory of where you think you came to a conclusion of what you experienced today. What made you come to the conclusion that you need to have the setup that you're watching this video on right now? What made you come to the conclusion that you need to have the business you are running right now? What made you come to the conclusion that you need to be focusing on these values within yourself in this present moment? What memory matches one particular limiting belief or one particular belief that you can learn when you became exposed to this? And this is a big part of the entire process. When you can trace the origin of your limiting belief, it often becomes irrelevant because you realize how stupid it is. I had a limiting belief before when I had my car. I've sold my car now. I've dropped out of uni, done all that. But when I had my car, I didn't want to spend more than, I think it was like £300 on tires. Because my parents, when I was in a car with them, I can remember distinctively being in the back seat and them going to, I think it was auto parts, and they were sat there hand in their face in their hands thinking, oh man, look at this bill that we've just had to pay for these tires. And I had this random thought back then that my parents are broke. They don't have enough money to pay for these tires. They had to borrow money from someone. And that was so embedded in my subconscious. And I can viscerally remember going through life feeling scarce about money for the simple fact that my parents weren't able to pay for this thing. But in reality, it wasn't that much of a problem at all. We weren't like massively broke, but we weren't well off either. So that one experience made me feel like we were the former. We were so worse off for wear when it came to money. And that was what made me really scarce. And finances, my financial literacy, my financial education was based upon this one memory. And you know how powerful that is? That one memory that I was exposed to in real time changed my entire trajectory. Can you imagine what that can do for your business? If you find and trace the origin of when you were exposed to something, that is why you are limited right now. And there's even more to where that came from. There's also a spectrum that these memories are on. You could have just been lightly exposed to this, or you could have been embedded deeply that this thing is deep. It's really subconscious. You can't see it for shit. When you wake up in the morning, it's just a part of your life. And this is something where I want to put together for you. We've got the Eli protocol to understand why, but the levels of knowing is exactly what you need to understand if you want to know what level your limiting belief is at. Because it's like fighting a different boss in a game. If you have a level 1 boss, then pretty easy to fight, pretty easy to switch up. Limiting belief gone. But there's some which are level 100 bosses, which you need to understand. And on that spectrum, there's 4 different points for you to understand that allow you to get an idea of what belief is where within the spectrum. First of all, I'm not going to go into this too depth. I'm going to give you a nice, simple explanation of it simply because this deserves its own video. But you lucky, you lucky bastard, you're going to get a nice breakdown of it on this video. It will be simple. It is simply exposure, single implementation, consistent implementation, and living. So we have E, S, C, L, Escal. And what exposure, you can't really see this because you're quite far away right now, but I'll get Toby to zoom in on that. Toby, my guy, zoom in on this. Single, consistent, and living. Now imagine this. You've just been exposed to something, someone said it to you, you've heard a conversation roughly, and you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. I kind of noticed that. And that's something that where most of your beliefs come from, 90% of them are borrowed. In fact, like almost 99. When you ask yourself where this belief has come from, you'll realize how stupid it is. But the reason why it's stupid is because this came from your, I don't know, 3-year-old cousin when you both were like, you were like 5 years older than him, and he said something, you're like, yeah, that's kind of true. That was like a exposure level thing. Or it could be when you have a business partner, or you have someone on a sales call, or you're watching content on Instagram, like just this small little bit of exposure to this thing plants the seed. And that's where you need to realize, like, this is at level 1 of where this limiting belief came from. But when you realize that these things just don't, and that they start to go down, the more that you expose yourself to these limiting beliefs, the more that you get prone to implementing it. Single implementation is when you take what they've said or take what you've been exposed to and you go, I'm going to try that. I'm going to give that a test. Let's say, for example, I had the limiting belief, like I mentioned earlier, of the car tires. I'm going to only buy a tire that is less than £300. Imagine what that did to me if I, got into a car crash based on my limiting beliefs that I needed to get a cheap tire. I don't even remember what car prices now are, but I can tell you for a fact, if I had cheaped out when I had more than enough money to pay for that thing, but I just had this limiting belief that had just started growing, where I wanted to test it. I wanted to test those tires out, see if they're actually what my mum and dad said they were, while they were talking and resolving the problem in real time. I'm going to make a single implementation, and when I had a flat tire, I did just that. So it really does start from a little seed and grows into a single implementation. But let's say, which I didn't do, let's say we go forward and I consistently buy tires less than £300. You imagine what that can do for me when the flat tire comes again. When it comes again, all I can think about is like, yeah, but I'm the type of guy who only buys £300 tires or lower. Nothing within what I'm saying is actually logical when you look at it from a third perspective. But in that consistent implementation of that thing, I can't see it. This is now where it gets to sort of a blind spot where it's just part of my life a little bit. I can go around my day, and if I had a flat tire, I'd probably get one under £300. This could also be applied to business. If I was on a sales call with someone, and one of my first few sales calls whilst I was a bit young in business was that someone came onto my calls and told me that, like, I don't think you're really good at that at selling, mate. Like, once I had a single implementation of that, where I had a call where I didn't feel like it went well, and at that point I'm like, fuck, maybe he's right. And then consistently you get back to back no shows, and you're thinking, fuck, man, what am I going to do? That's like, maybe that guy was double right. You know, actually, never mind. He is right. And all of those things start to really embed once you've had consistent implementation or consistent exposure. Same thing across the board. No matter the form of the limiting belief that comes, as long as it's consistent in your life, it starts to really embed itself. And I think that's so dangerous when you don't realize what limiting beliefs you have. That is going to kill you. But even worse than that is when you are living in the truth of the exposed belief that started as a very small single use case where you got exposed to it in a conversation, and now it's ruling your life. Every time you wake up, this thing is there and you don't bat an eye to it. Which brings us to ignorance. The reason why you are limited in your business or limited in life is simply because you are ignorant to the truth that you have limitations. You are ignorant to the fact that no matter what, if you tried so hard to do certain things and it just did not work out, you are ignorant to the true reason why that is. It's because you have limitations stemming from your childhood or stemming from experiences that date back to years ago, all the way to today, where you've been exposed, you've made a single implementation of it. And then you've consistently done that without knowing. And then that starts to really embed in your life until you live in that truth of what that limiting belief is telling you. There's also certain things which I don't blame you for having this ignorance, because what ignorance means is that you do not know that there are things inside you holding you back. And what I mean by things is, I'm going to bring a bit more clarity to you, which might be a light bulb moment, is that you are not your beliefs. They are literal things. They are entities. And they have embedded yourself and started seeping your energy through all of these levels of knowing to get you to a point where you don't realize that your energy is being drained 24/7. I'm literally talking about from stuff that happened 8 years ago is now draining your energy and you don't even realize it. There are so many living beliefs that you have right now, which, if you understand the levels of knowing, but also realizing where they came from, but also realizing you're being ignorant to those things, then it's going to change everything. Because the moment you can flip that switch, you move from being a victim to your beliefs to being an observer and a transformer of those beliefs. Now, what I want to put into perspective is that most people don't realize that they have limiting beliefs inside of their limiting beliefs. So they don't realize they can actually change their limitations. And this is the key. Because if you realize what I call the meta belief, which is the belief within a belief, if you can change the top level one, you can allow yourself to unlock the power to change your beliefs beyond anything. And everything that's happened in the past, however so many years or months, that's gone through this levels of knowing, you can learn to change those beliefs. Can you believe that right now? That's your job to figure out. There's a loop bell. But anyway, the meta belief that is currently holding you back, we just need to bring awareness to that. And how we do that is through the ICE implementation or intervention protocol. You are literally frozen in ice, unable to grow. And what we're going to do is intervene with that. We're going to find the exact beliefs and pinpoint what those beliefs are for you to be able to reverse them, to change them. Make sure you are living in the new truth, which is you are this person who doesn't have these limits, but has these growth opportunities, who has this trajectory, who is moving on a path towards this. There's a lot of nuance behind this, but I would love for you to extrapolate everything that we've learned so far in the why. Whilst you've written them down, you've had thoughts, you've had weird light bulb moments. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But this is going to change everything if you understand what this is, which the ICE implementation and intervention protocol is simply something you can follow by focusing on one limiting belief, one at a time. You can understand exactly what the belief is, why it's happened so far, what you need to do to change it, and how you can make it your default state. This is key because most people are running on a default state, flooded with limitations. And that is something, when you switch the default state, you will unlock every part of growth that is bound to happen as a result of that. If you have a vision board, if you have a ton of goals that you wrote for 2026 and you're looking at it now and you're thinking, fuck me, I don't really think, if I'm being honest with myself, I can do that. Well, it's because there's one or two, probably 3 to 5 limiting beliefs that you can run through in order, but also one at a time, that are going to change exactly how you operate and exactly how you behave and therefore your outcomes in business. And this is going to be game changing. So I want you to take notes, put them in the comments, and just really have fun with this, because this is something when you realize the power of getting rid of the meta beliefs and also the beliefs within the beliefs of the meta belief, it's going to be fucking awesome. So enough hyping it up. We have got identify exactly what that belief is. And there's another I. Can you guys guess what the other I is? I don't think you can, because I'm a very sneaky guy. I like to sneak double whammies in there, but identify and isolate, hence the one at a time format I mentioned earlier. Identify and isolate exactly what this belief is. And this comes from understanding why it's not worked in the past and why it works. The fact that when you reverse your beliefs, you get the ability to change them. You need to identify which memory you've been exposed to in the past. And I want you to block out everything else apart from that limiting belief, because there's certain aspects of your process that you're running on right now where it repeats the exact cycle subconsciously. It's going on in the background, and you need to stop it where it is, because there's certain elements of your limiting beliefs that are so hidden you can't see them. But I want you to reverse them in a way. I want you to identify from the top of the chain what limiting beliefs you have. Ask yourself really quickly, based on my outcomes of what I'm living in and I'm experiencing right now, what do I believe to be true about the world and myself if I have achieved this outcome, or if I'm experiencing this outcome? Let's say you had 50K in your bank account right now. Even if you want to get to 100K in your bank account right now, there's a limit between you and that. So you want to understand, what would I have to have believed about the world and myself to only have 50K in my bank account right now? Once we've identified what that is as the outcome, you can go back between how you've operated in the past, what you've behaved as, what thoughts you've had, what emotions you've experienced, and just genuinely what that memory was at the very start. What's the trajectory? What's the timeline? What's your way of doing things that has led you to have 50K or any other limiting factor or outcome that you currently have in place right now? What is the thing that is keeping you frozen in ice? Let's find it. Let's identify and isolate it. So nothing else matters except this for the next 7 weeks or 7 days or 7 hours. You probably have limits on how long it's going to take as well. That's a meta belief. So think about it in this space of, I'm just going to find one of them. I'm not going to focus on anything else. I'm going to isolate it. Next, this is one thing which a lot of people struggle to do. If you struggle between steps 1 and 2, you're going to have a really good time learning about this, which is convert. Once you've found that limiting belief, once you've understood that there is one thing that you're going to focus on right now that is holding you back, a limiting belief that is giving you a limiting outcome, you want to look at it and be like, this is no longer a part of me. Now, another meta belief which is going to really limit you is that it's really complex to implement this and to change your beliefs. That is a meta belief that is stemmed almost with everyone, because people don't realize that the space that they see as woo-woo, which is limiting beliefs and all the mindset side of the info space, is that it's super simple to change your beliefs. Now, another double whammy in there is convert consciously. For something to first come into your point of view and for you to be able to realize and be aware that you need to change it, is you need to start doing it consciously. It's always conscious and then unconscious. There's stuff you do in the physical realm that will go back into your mental realm. And there's also stuff that has been incubating in your mental and spiritual realms that you might be experiencing right now. That is always a knock-on effect. What we view as reality is not actually reality. There's a lot more going on up here and in here than there is in here. And that might be difficult to believe, but there's certain aspects of meta beliefs that are holding you back from realizing that. So if you want to do that, make a conscious choice to remove that one, the top level one, and then start realizing you have the power to convert these beliefs. But how do you do that? I go back to our levels of knowing. We realize, okay, if this is like level 3, you need to stop right now. If this is at level 4, we probably need to do a little bit more relaxation, finding that belief, tracing back the exact memory, and spending a bit more time on it, because it's probably hidden inside, probably so deeply embedded in your subconscious as a conclusion of the world and of yourself that has stopped you. But once we realize that this belief has level 2, level 3, even level 1, pretty simple, you understand that you can just make a conscious choice to reverse it. So let's say it was a limiting belief that I am the only person, or I'm a person who only buys 300-pound tires, or I'm the only person who goes to the gym on Thursdays at 3 p.m. because I have to do all my work in the morning, but really that stopped me from getting the most production out of my day, for example. I'm going to make a conscious choice that I'm no longer the person who does that. I believe X. What conclusion do you want to come to now? That you're going to consciously reverse from here to get to a new conclusion. And most people who have the meta belief of it's so complex that you can't do this will fail at this step and they will struggle. But you are the guy who's going to do that. You're going to get rid of that meta belief that everything's so complex to actually get to where you want to go, and realize it's super simple. It's simple, but it's not easy. But this is the easy part, which is just making the conversion and consciously choosing to believe the opposite. I consciously choose that I am now a person who does this. I am now consciously choosing to buy a tire above 500 pounds. I'm now consciously choosing to go to the gym at 5:45 a.m. if that's what you want to do, and then do all my work afterwards. And there's so many things like nuances of your day that might be really embedded in like level 4 levels of knowing, but there's also stuff that's really easy to solve. So what I would also stress, like doing it one at a time, is just leveling up. It is like a video game at the end of the day. Choose some level ones. If you've done a bit more emphasis and reflection on like what limiting beliefs you have, you've got 3 to 5, and you're thinking, okay, this one's probably the one that I want to focus on right now. This is going to do the most ROI, but it's also probably at like level 2 and level 3. It's only just started to limit me, or it's been limiting me for ages. You want to focus on that aspect of you, that aspect of how you view the world, and just realize that I'm now going to convert that consciously. But this is where we get to moving you from having this sort of conscious disparity that you're not this person, like you don't really have what it takes to do this thing, to evolving. Now, there might be a triple whammy in here. I'm just going to warn you. Everything that you're doing right now is you are not moving. You are not being a person who evolves their beliefs. You've had a meta belief that it's so complex and that you're not the type of guy who can change. But in reality, evolution is more simple than ever. When we evolved from being meat eaters to some of us being vegans, it was like the most subtle switch ever. They had a limiting belief or a belief in and of itself that it was just like, I'm not the type of guy who eats meat. I actually really like tofu, you know? Could be your guy. Or I'm not the type of guy who runs a VSL webinar funnel. I'm not the type of guy who does that. There's certain limiting beliefs that are genuinely holding back your business and also your life and also like what you eat for lunch. So many of them. But we are evolving creatures. We are bound to evolution just by nature. So when you think about what you want to do, just think of it as an evolution, as a quick switch, because what you're doing right now is essentially the essence of self-improvement. You pick a limiting belief, you isolate it, you realize the opposite of it, you choose to do that thing and that only that thing, however long you want to do it for. And then you realize that I'm going to evolve along this spectrum to getting from A to B with this thing. And you're doing this consistently every day to get enough evidence, evolving one at a time, to generate evidence. Sorry, let me just, evidence of your new belief. Simply what we've been going through right now is really the reason why you've been so stuck. But it's also this exact same reason of why you can evolve and you can become the person who has this belief. Because if you get single exposure to a new belief that you've now written down, you've now popped into your head, you're going to realize the next step is simply consistently implementing this thing. But the one before that is just doing it once. Going to the gym at 7 a.m. once. Realizing that this limiting belief wasn't so hard or wasn't so complex. It was just something where you haven't been exposed to it enough to then want to implement it for the first time. But the want is also a part of your why, which is a part of your intrinsic, self-image and everything that comes about with your identity, which is another concept as well. The reason why this is its own video, because this is something which, if you evolve along the spectrum, you're going to be watching this motherfucking video every single day to realize exactly why you've been holding yourself back and why what you're going to do next is going to bring you to the next level. So all you need to do, very simply, go along, just being exposed to it from this video or somewhere else, to implementing that exact same one conscious choice that you said you're going to do. And that comes along the spectrum of self-trust. The more you trust yourself, the more you can go along these levels of knowing. If you trust yourself a lot to consistently implement this, you're going to change exactly what that limiting belief has caused you to experience in real time. And that's going to be bloody awesome. Because once you've consistently implemented it, it's going to become automatic. It's going to become a habit. It's going to be something that you live in the truth of. When you've gone through all of that, you've gathered enough evidence to suggest that you have this belief now. There's always going to be a voice, your ego at the back of your head, trying to move you back, trying to seep that energy back. There's going to be other limiting beliefs that are also meta beliefs that are going to try and latch onto that new belief, and they're going to try and take you down by exposing you to something else. You need to be aware that evolution is sometimes not easy. There's sometimes environment and other factors that are going to physically change you, but from the inside out. And there's so many things you want to think about when it comes to this, but just know, be vigilant. There's so many things, like when I first started meditating, I got really frustrated and really uneasy about trying to meditate and trying to get to a very calm, centered space. But all the limiting beliefs inside me were literally making a physical reaction where I was like, I'm not the type of guy who sits still. But when I made a physical chance and I gave myself a chance and I made a physical and conscious choice, no, I'm just going to sit here for 10 minutes and stare at a wall. And guess what happened? I had my first implementation of that thing. Then I started meditating consistently from day and night, consistently doing that until I meditate all the time now, until it's something I live in the truth of. What a fucking marvel of a process, am I right? This has been the ICE intervention protocol, where you can understand exactly what limiting beliefs you have, what conclusions you've come to subconsciously, why this has held you back for so long, and why you can implement it now, and why it works, the fact that you have so much power within you to change your limits. This has been Alex Archives Life, and if you'd love to implement this for yourself, I can do a one-to-one audit with you on a quick 15-minute call. This is only for people who are actually really serious about changing their limits, and the people I mentioned who know they have a limiting belief. So if you are that person, then I'd love to have a chat with you, and I'll do that completely free. And pitch aside, I hope you really enjoyed watching this video, because I enjoyed sharing my knowledge and my expertise with you guys. But that's all for now. Alex Archives Life is out, and that is the archives out as well. In a bit.